He's so Vaeni. He's so Vaeni.
Aloha and welcome to another He's So Vain. But first, I want to tell you about something I am truly excited about, which is I am resurrecting me old time. Well, it was a website, it was a podcast, it was a conference. It was, I'm going back to my roots here, culture of contact. When I was hosting Dreamland with Whitley Strieber as a guest host monthly not too long ago, I had promised to do sort of an alien abduction or ufological grad school type seminar series. And I'm going to do that under Culture of Contact. So look forward to that. I'm also now, because I'm doing that, and because I actually need money in real life for once, I'm going to be accepting donations. So if you would like to donate to me and keep all of this stuff free for everyone, although not you if you're donating, but everyone else, if you've got the cash, you could do like a one-time donation of whatever you want, or there's like monthly donation suggestions or whatever it is. I'll have a link to that, and it's right on the screen right now. You see it. But it'll also be in the description of this. It is Ko-Fi, or maybe it's pronounced coffee. I don't know, but I'm pronouncing it Ko-Fi because it just sounds more like something you'd take, a drug with a lot of side effects. But anyway, it's kind of like a Patreon, but it's actually much, much better for my needs, and it is completely safe as far as anything that you're giving money to online is safe, right? Like, what the hell is safe anymore? But supposedly it's at least as safe as Patreon. So yes, definitely, if you like what you see here in this video, or any of the things that I have done, because I've done a hell of a lot over the years, if you appreciate all that work and you want to toss me some coin, please do. Either way, I will be starting that series maybe as soon as April, and I will have a video dedicated to it as well, and just as an introduction to what this is going to be. But basically, I'm thinking it's going to be one day, like a Friday or a Saturday, I will release a pre-recorded seminar of my babble. And then through Discord, we can talk about it. We can do like roundtable discussions or however that works out. Maybe that's not the best way to do it. I'm not sure. If you have suggestions, like I was going to just live stream the whole thing, but I don't know. I think I could be much clearer if I can edit and also not have to worry about my crappy internet going out. So anyway, that's that. Please do consider supporting me. I need it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking for it. And when I don't need it, I will not be asking for it anymore. You know this is true. If you've followed me on me old Paratopia days, Jeff Ritzman and I were charging money for that show. And even though that was like a good portion of my income, when I first moved to Hawaii, I felt like I had run out of gas, had nothing to say. And we dissolved the show. So I don't just keep going to take your money. In other words, like when I'm done, I'm done. If I don't need your money, I don't ask for it. Now I'm asking for it because I need it. So please do consider keeping everything advertisement free and free for everyone else. Anyway, let's get back to this free show. This week's show is another out of the Joe Rogan podcast. It is titled Professor of Religion Gives Her Take on the UFO Phenomenon, and it is an interview with one Diana Pasulka, whose books I have not read, whose backstory in terms of how she got into this, by ufology, that is, by way of like dudes from a secret organization, or maybe just Space Force or something, taking her into the desert to show her alien metals. All of that sounds, how you say, bullshitty to me. I think she was duped for disinformation purposes, or maybe because they're nuts and thought that they really did have alien metal and wanted her to bring their message to the world. I don't know why they would choose like some professor of religion and I think mythology, right? But all of that said, if that is her way into this, and she is a professor with that sort of background of religion and mythology, I do believe, then even if it was a false start, maybe she's actually still good for the field, and I should give her a chance. So let's do that. Now she's heard that type of criticism before, and she says, no, these guys are legit. What happened was legit, and all of that. It's just that we've seen this before with Linda Moulton Howe, if anyone remembers, I think back in the 80s, where like Richard Doty and company, you know, chloroformed her and put a blindfold on her and shoved her in the back of a van or something. I don't know what they did, but they essentially showed her like, you know, future world or something. I don't know what they showed her. They showed her some bullshit and said, hey, this is aliens. Go promote this. And she said, no, this is kind of bullshitty. Well, it seems like the same sort of thing is happening to Diana Pasulka. And instead of saying, no, that's bullshitty, she's saying, I buy that. I'm in the know on something top secret for no apparent reason. But let's see what she has to say to Joe Rogan. Maybe, again, she is ultimately good for the field. Let's see what she has to contribute.
What do you think the UFO phenomenon is?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, that there are a lot of different varieties of it. But when we look at, like we were looking at the Francis of Assisi and the kind of historical things and the abductions and things like that, I think that it's been around for a long time and that these are things that are in communication with us. So what I do in my book, both the books that I wrote about this, is I talk to people who I think represent thousands of people. So each person in the book represents thousands, if not more, maybe many thousands of people who have had experiences and the ways in which they interpret them. So all of the people seem to have had experiences where now what they want to do is they actually want to work for justice in different ways. Like Jose, the veteran in my book, he's working with young people and helping them deal with being addicted to social media and things like that and helping them get through life, which is really hard right now. And that's what he's doing. And then you look at Dr. Whiteley, right? So she's working in the Space Force. She's trying to, help people deal with the fact that they're seeing things that, that could down planes and things like that. And she's helping people talk about that. She's helping people.
Okay, I don't know what that means. She's helping people who can see things down plane. I don't know what this is. But I think to her general point, if I'm getting what her point is, people who have high strangeness experiences, or at least lifetime experiencers, and this is true with me personally, this is true with the cajillion people I've interviewed over the years, there seems to be one takeaway that we all seem to have, whether our experiences on the sort of literal level reflect that or not. I've talked about this a bunch of times, maybe even on this show, but probably not. There seems to be, you seem to walk away, she's saying to do nice things in various ways. Okay, I'll buy that. What I've seen is like, with a respect and a reverence and a care for Earth, for climate change, for animals, for plants, Earth, for life, for livingness. So in other words, you could have an experience where it appears as though doctors are abducting you, alien doctors, and they're doing stuff and it's fearful. And that person, and it's not always, right? But a lot of times that person will, for some reason, walk away feeling a reverence for Earth, feeling like a protector or a caretaker of Earth. And it's the same for someone who has like a vision of global climate catastrophe or an ice age coming or nuclear holocaust or something, like something that is specifically about that person may also walk away But it doesn't have to be about that. It can also be the other thing, which seems to have nothing to do with this. And back before Jeff Ritzmann and I completely decimated hypnosis research in the field of alien abduction, so go look that up. The two most famous abduction hypnotists outside of John Mack, who came a little bit later, but before him was Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs. And of course, they were of the opinion that this ranged from either malevolent alien doctors doing malevolent doctor things, or at the very least, uncaring alien doctors doing alien doctor things. And anyone who would have such a takeaway, who was under their pseudo care through hypnosis or whatnot, their sort of pat answer would be something along the lines of, well, that's what the aliens want you to think. They want you to think that's what's going on. They want, this sort of thing. Like anything good that came out of it would be like, oh, that's because they're faking it and they're making you, identify with them or please the abuser or something. It would be something in that realm of thought of like, this positivity coming out of this is sheer nonsense. They're making you see that. And that was sheer nonsense. And in fact, hypnosis was sheer nonsense because it is, again, as I've said a cajillion times, maybe not on this show, hypnosis is a fine tool for behavior modification. It is a crap tool for memory retrieval. The only reason you don't know this is because movies and television have been using hypnosis as a memory retrieval trope forever, and so you think that that must be true. And also in alien abduction world and past life regression world, the cottage industries around these are, primarily based on hypnosis, and so those people are misinformed or lying to you. Your favorite researchers are misinformed or lying to you, or they wouldn't be using hypnosis. All right. Now let's continue on with this. Except, well, I guess I was struggling there for a second because I did want to say, like, isn't it interesting that even though the hypnosis memories are not trustworthy, still it's the same thing flowers out of people who have had hypnosis versus not, which is this reverence for Earth. Again, not always, but often the case.
Each person is somehow doing what I'm suggesting that I think is an out to this kind of structural injustice that we see. So I think that this is a transformational thing without the drugs is what's going on, like some kind of massive experience that people are having, and now it's getting out and people are being able to talk to each other through Reddit communities and, different types of social media.
Okay, well, it is a transformational thing without the drugs. And I think it's sad. Of course, she's sitting across from Joe Rogan, so she has to say stuff like that for his meathead to comprehend. But he's not the only one. There's plenty of meat to go around. And some of them are scholars, as I've found out, who believe that, like, you can't really have transformational experiences unless you're on drugs, or that the transformational experiences on drugs are the exact same thing as the not. And this is stuff that I will talk about elsewhere, but let's just for now say it's not. It's transformational, but this isn't the transformational. This doesn't have to be. Let's put it that way. This idea of like, well, she's saying justice or social justice, but the idea of like being a better person, being more empathetic and caring in the world and for the world, that is the icing on the cake of the transformational aspect of this, or at least it should be. But at all points along the way, we don't want to transcend ourselves. We want to better ourselves. We don't want, in other words, I've talked about the death of self on this show for sure. Even experiencers don't want that. So we want learning moments, teachable moments. We want to be better, higher, whatever. We don't want to be the wholeness that one is when the self dissolves and is contextualized, properly contextualized, as, let's say, a lesser force within one's own body.
So it is. It's. We did see, religions when they become viral at one point. We've never seen it in an age where we have digital technology, but this is what we're seeing now.
What do you think the physical objects are?
Well, okay, so this is something that's very interesting. We just looked at the Shroud of Turin. I believe that there are these, I would call them, and this is just my own non-scientific term, interdimensional objects. They're objects that have characteristics of our dimension and some other dimension.
So some other dimension has the capability, or something from some other dimension has the capability of transporting a physical object into our realm.
Or even imprinting onto a physical object. Yeah.
How so?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think
What
that's
do you mean by, what does that mean, imprinting onto
So
a
with the
physical
Shroud
object?
of Turin,
Okay.
we see the imprint of, the image and...
If it's real.
Yeah, if it's real. But it's an anomalous object. So we do have...
Is it? I mean, that's a pretty big, if it's real is a pretty, like, all right, here's another problem with scholars too. I'm saying this in case any of you are scholars and you're listening to this. What I find frustrating is that a lot of times they write books or give some, I was gonna say sermons, but give speeches where they have a good idea, or a great idea. They've got something real to contribute there, but the examples they use to get to it are somewhere between like decent to completely sketchy to out and out frauds. And because if for instance they're talking about a subject like UFOs to a religious histories professor or whatever, if they're not familiar with frauds and with what sketchy is, because they haven't been in the subject for long enough, then maybe they don't know the difference, and maybe they should figure it out instead of always getting a pass on presenting. Because if you have this great idea, right, and you're like, I think this is what the UFO phenomenon is, and it's like, holy crap, that's kind of revolutionary. Yeah, that's deep. I want to stick with that. But then the examples you use to get there are like, the Billy Meyer case. You know what I mean? Like Roswell or whatever, like things that or the Shroud of Turin. No, you can't do that. You gotta, this is why I like to stick with my own, often anyway, stick with my own experiences when I explore bigger concepts, because I'm not going to get into that trouble. Right? But if I'm going to bother to like study this stuff or befriend certain people in the field to use as examples of whatever my thinking is, I better make damn sure, to the best of my ability, that they're not mentally ill, liars, or or that the object such as the Shroud of Turin is like, I mean, solidly anomalous. Not like, it's not really anomalous, but a couple of people keep claiming it is because they make money saying that. You know what I mean? There's a difference.
From Gary Nolan, engineered objects, that we don't know how they're engineered, but they definitely look like they're, it's...
Again, here it is. Gary Nolan, engineered objects. We don't know where they're from, all of this. Look, I'm an experiencer, so I'm the first one to tell you that something about this is real. But it's not going to be this stuff. This stuff is... And just having one person study something and proclaim it real. And is Gary Nolan a metallurgist? I don't even know that he is. But anyway, you get the point.
It's off-planet. I would call the kinds of things that we see in the historical record interdimensional types of things. Now, how? I don't know, Joe. Okay, so I just don't know. But I do think that scientists in the government know that these things exist, and they would like to figure it out. And so part of disclosure, the disclosure movement, is outsourcing this and trying to get as many people as possible to help in figuring it out.
Okay, great. Then do that. Has Gary Nolan done that? Have the Shroud of Turin people done that? I don't know. But I mean, like, no, the problem is that people make a claim and then they wrap their tendrils around, if it's an object, they wrap their tendrils around it because they want to go on tour with it and they want to write books about it and they want to do films and, you know, Ancient Aliens or History Channel or whatever. They want this thing to be an anomaly because you're not going to prove it's real. So they certainly don't want to prove it's fake. The only one who did that and got away with it because he gets away with everything is Stephen Greer, right? Who was like, look at these little baby alien mummies. Oh, they're so cute. And then you look at them and they're like little deformed human fetuses, whatever they are. And then we find that out. So thankfully, we found that out. But he's still out there doing his shtick, isn't he? Maybe not with these fetuses, but enough is never enough. But so I would say don't even get wrapped up in the idea of objects, trying to prove that this is real through objects, and then having to wrap a theory around how they're hyperdimensional or whatever, or they're definitely from off planet. Like, none of this is true. None of what she's saying here is true. It's speculation, and it's speculation by the people making the money, the people doing the research. But great, show your work and then give it to a whole bunch of other people and who are qualified to do the research. Let's see what happens. I just know that famously Lloyd Pye, if anyone remembers him with his Star Child skull, me old pal Dr. Tyler Cokejohn was qualified to research that or get it into the hands of researchers at a university level, and offered Lloyd Pye free help with discovering what exactly this Star Child skull is. And he said, nope, thanks, got it. And then continues to go on being like, this is an anomaly, we don't know, but it kind of looks like aliens. You know, that's the shtick, man. And it's the same with UFO cases too, right? There are people who become the investigator, who is associated with the abductee or with the UFO case or whatever it is, and they hoard their material, they block access to the witness / experiencer, you know, all of that, because it's a fucking cottage industry. This is what it is. First and foremost, ufology is a cottage industry. The phenomenon is real. The industry around it is garbage, and everyone is trying to make money and protect their pet project.
What do you think when they use the term donations? What do you think the purpose of that is? If there is an object that is purposely released into our, you know, like I'm sure you're aware of cargo cults,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So with cargo cults, for people that don't know, there's been some islands during World War I and World War II where planes landed there and they left, and these people, they created these statues of these planes and they worshiped them. And they
wanted them to come back.
Yes.
Yeah,
wanted them
because
to
they
come
got
back.
food and you know all
Yes.
kinds of wonderful things from the planes.
Right. And
yeah, like they thought of them as deities.
Right. The same way we
Yeah.
would think of something from
Like
somewhere
this.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that in my field has been called the cargo cult, the UFO cargo cult, right? And obviously Tyler and James view these parts as donate. They called it the donation site.
I think Tyler and James are the two probably pseudonyms for the people who dragged her to the chloroformed her. No, wait, that's Linda Moulton Howe. No, that's nobody. Nobody chloroformed anybody. It's a lie. I'm lying. But anyway, they're the ones who showed her the alleged alien medal. So they're the ones talking about, are these donations?
Right. So giving it the idea
Is that just one theory?
yeah, that's just one theory.
Are there other theories that there's a biological organism that encounters a lightning storm and it actually crashes and there's physical bodies?
Oh yeah,
that are
there
recovered?
is that. Yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
Going
What's your
around.
take on that? Because that's one of the things that Grush talked about and some of the other people talked about, that there are biological things that have been recovered.
Well, what impressed me about what he said was that he used the term biologics. And I actually know that term because that's the same term that Tyler was talking about when he was creating materials in anti-gravity spaces on space shuttles and such. So I was wondering, because David Grush does get his information from people allegedly in the programs, but he's never seen these materials that I know of.
I think he has some firsthand experience that he was not able to talk about.
Okay.
That he's alluding to.
Okay.
None of this is fascinating or mysterious to me. I mean, these guys all know each other. The end.
I think, but this
Yeah.
this is recent, and he's been very careful about how he releases this information and what he's able to release and not able to release. And
Right.
that I was like, okay,
Yeah.
really?
So I mean, I've not seen any bodies, nor have I seen intact craft, but I also have had, now remember, I don't have a clearance like he has, so I can actually talk about what people have told me. I have had people tell me that, yes, Diana, there are intact craft. I don't know. I mean, maybe. So,
But it would be useful to know if these are the same people who are telling David Grush this. Like, are they lying? Because, spoiler alert, they're lying. This is not what the phenomenon is. It's not, again, I'll get into this on a whole other program in full. But, you know, this ain't about aliens. This ain't about, like, spaceships that get knocked out of the sky by lightning after, you know, spending however many light years traveling here. Like, it's ridiculous. And the idea of donations, how many donations do you need? Now, when it came to the Roswell alleged crash, back when I believed such a thing, I thought what would make sense is if aliens or interdimensional or whatever they are crashed and left bodies on purpose to see what we would do with it, which was kind of the plot, or was the plot, I guess, of Whitley Strieber's novel Majestic. That always, when I read that made sense to me. Like, oh, right, yeah, you want to feed it into the powers that be and see what they do with it, and then you'll know, like, what your next move should be, if you should bother even, you know, openly saying hi or take me to your leader or not. But how many of those do you need to do? How many donations do you need to do? And do all governments get them or just the one? But also, none of this is real. So
I don't know, Joe.
Have you studied Bob Lazar?
Okay, yes, I am always asked about Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I can tell you that people that I've met who are associated with the programs tell me that he's right. Now I know his background, and I know, you know, all the things. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but I can also say that a lot of times people with very disturbing backgrounds, you know, who could be easily discredited, are given information and shown things.
the problem is, Bob Lazar's disturbing background, I think, came to light or happened after he came out, right? Someone correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he came out and talked about Area 51 and alien bodies and the sports model UFO and all that stuff. And then, like, years later, he was caught or arrested for or charged with whatever it is, went to court for and lost, setting up cameras in a brothel or something illegally, whatever that is. Like, all that stuff happened after. And the stuff where he's like, you know, Jeremy Corbell does that, you know, documentary on him, and then the FBI shows up, and it's actually about his, I don't even remember what, like selling illegal chemicals or something, whatever it is. You know, it ends up being some other shitty thing. But this is all many, many years after his initial revelations. And so you would think that, like, if he were really a whistleblower, they would have put him away or had him killed for any number of these things. But no, they just seem to be crimes that he commits or is under suspicion of, however it works out, that he then, like any person, goes to trial and gets the appropriate sentence or gets let off and goes about life, whatever it is. I mean, there's nothing, like, exceedingly shady about any of his sentences, right? Or court proceedings or anything. He's still out there doing this stuff, talking about this stuff. So it doesn't add up. The thing that was shady about him, as far as I can remember, prior to the Area 51 stuff, is that he doesn't seem to have a good background to be a top secret scientist at Area 51. That seemed to be the only conflict of interest, is that he ain't Einstein. I mean, sure, he's got a background in physics or whatever it is, or engineering. He put a rocket ship on the back of a rocket on the back of a car. That's pretty amazing. But is that the guy that you tap to come into the big space program? I mean, I get that you want, what she's saying is, like, you want people who are compromised so that you can easily laugh them off, dispose of them, whatever it is, if they ever do become whistleblowers. But don't you also want the best and brightest? Isn't that actually what you want working on the program? The best and brightest who then believe in some vision of America where this must be kept secret at all costs, you know?
Well, I would think that that's sort of like a little escape clause.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is.
I mean, the guy's obviously a genius and was obviously a propulsion expert. He put a fucking jet engine on a Honda in like the 1980s. He's a fascinating guy.
Yeah.
And, he claims that there's some element that exists in other places in the universe, which leads me to believe, not even to believe, but so here's the question. Are some of these things from other planets? Is that also in the equation? I mean, just because something is traveling interdimensionally, we do know that there are an infinite number of planets in the universe. I mean, we have no idea how many of them are capable of supporting human-like life or some other kind of life or an infinite number of varieties of life. And if that life can do what we've done and get to some part of its progression where it's capable of creating what we're calling artificial intelligence or super advanced technology, why wouldn't it come here?
Yes, I'm not discounting ET.
So that could be there too.
I think so, especially because of the ways in which the materials are being manufactured off planet, like the ones that we just saw.
Listen, if this is your evidence, these materials that someone is claiming are being manufactured off planet, if that's your evidence for aliens, how are you a professor or something? I'm curious what it takes to be a professor and to know what goes into scholarship and research papers, and to know what Diana Pasulka must know about peer review. Are you kidding? What are we talking about here? I mean, really? Well, Gary Nolan says it, so gives a shit. Who else says it? Anyone? Anyone outside of ufology? Anyone who doesn't claim to be an experiencer? Like anyone without a vested interest looking into this? And how about a third person and a fourth? How about someone from another country? How about anything?
And that was information when I met Tyler 2014, and now it's a full-on thing that's happening, right? So it's a supercharged program of creating things that will help us off planet. I mean, certainly then, yeah, I think so. I mean, but I don't know.
Right.
So I have to just be honest.
So
I will give her kudos for that. I do like how many times she ends with "I don't know." For a lot of people, that's a problem. For me, that's a plus. Because if you don't know, you should say you don't know. And she does. So hats off to her. We do need more of that in ufology, and a lot less like "I know" bravado.
it might be a bunch of different things happening all at the same time, interdimensionally, extraterrestrially, something from a distant galaxy that's figured out some new method of propulsion that's beyond our imagination that can visit, and then also things that are coming here from other dimensions.
Yes, and even recently somebody had, Yeah, well, I can't say anything. I can't say I'm sorry. I don't
Oh.
want to be that person that
Okay.
goes on your show and
No,
says,
it's
"Oh,
okay.
I can't say that."
I
But
understand.
I probably, most likely there are if there's crash retrieval crash retrievals here on Earth, perhaps there are in space as well.
Do you
Oh, look at Diana Pasulka knowing something. See, perhaps if you know that and you're sort of sworn to secrecy about it, then perhaps you don't know anything because perhaps that would be such a top secret. I mean, let's put it this way. Donald Trump right now, he's in trouble. Now, granted, he's got a judge who's trying to keep him out of trouble. He's in trouble nevertheless for having top secret documents. None of these top secret documents are about aliens or UFOs or UFO crash retrievals in outer space or anything like that. And he's been allegedly bragging to other rich people about what he knows about things like, for instance, top secret functions of a U.S. submarine, nuclear submarines, and things like this. Again, not aliens, not UFOs, not biologics. You would think a guy like Donald Trump would have scoured the heavens and the earth for those documents to store in his shitter in Mar-a-Lago, right? But nothing. So, but Diana Pasulka, apparently she's got access to the people, the programs, the documents. I don't know what. She's not saying what, but let's just say it's people, because it's probably what it is, whispering in her ear, telling her the things that they think she's going to want to hear. Probably because she's a dupe in a disinformation campaign of some sort for whatever reason, and they're feeding her stuff, and they know that she's going to say stuff like this on shows like this, and it's going to keep people, going, chugging along in the UFO field for all the wrong reasons.
when they talk about inventions that emerged post Roswell, that's one of the points of speculation, is that we have back engineered something, and that this led to the creation of fiber optics and a lot of other technologies that seem to emerge after that time.
And I believe the people who invented fiber optics, if I'm not mistaken, came out and said decades ago, we invented fiber optics. Like, this is nonsense.
Yeah. So this question was prominent in my mind in 2012 when I met Jacques Vallee. So I was already aware of his work, even as a person who hadn't studied UFOs or even believed in them. Jacques Vallee is just one of these people, right, that you come across his work and he's fascinating.
Really? I don't know of anyone who's not interested in the subject who comes across Jacques Vallee's work. They may know of The Scientist from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that was based on him, but they don't know that it was based on him. They just have seen Close Encounters. That's as close as most people have gotten to Jacques Vallee in the world, I think. But if you're interested in UFOs and such, see, this is where I find this a little sketchy. Like, wait, were you into UFOs before these guys took you out into the desert, or were you really just a noob who they approached for whatever reason? I mean, again, I haven't read her books, so it's probably all explained in there, and I apologize for my own ignorance on this, but I just get a little weary every time, because it's a lot in ufology where you hear someone say, I was never interested in this. I was the biggest skeptic you would ever meet. And then the next thing out of their mouth is how they're not the biggest skeptic you would ever meet. They were sort of always into this. And this kind of smacks of that to me.
So I thought it was strange that not only was he a person who was, pre-engineered ARPANET, right? He was on ARPANET, which is pre-internet. He was creating that at the same time as being obsessed with UFOs and doing, being a ufologist. These things seemed that they had to be together, right? There was something that, what's going on here? So, and I'm in touch with him.
Why? The end. I'll keep this one short.
Often. And he says a lot of things that are rather cryptic, but sometimes I ask him specifically, was what you were doing on ARPANET related to back-engineered UFO parts. And then he'd say something like, there are many secrets in Silicon Valley, something like that.
Yeah.
Is he joking?
Yeah, he's real cryptic. He's kind of difficult to have a conversation with publicly. You know?
Well, it does have a lot. I guess there are lots of secrets in Silicon Valley.
Of course.
Which is where he lives.
Yeah. Another thing that was really fascinating about your book was you were talking about how much religion he studied.
Yes. Yes. That was really interesting. So in the book, what I do is I uncover not just him, but Alan Hynek. They were friends. And they were both Rosicrucians, which is a form of, he might not like me to say this, but it's a form of mystical Christianity in a sense. But a lot of Rosicrucians don't view their roots as Christian. They look at it as Egyptian. But it's basically, it's an esoteric tradition. And it involves meditation. I think it most likely involves this thing that you and I have been discussing in the whole talk so far is the pineal gland thing, you know, the access point, because both of them believe in this kind of life, this meditating and things like that. And so I included references. Everything I say in my books, by the way, I pass to the person that I'm writing the chapter about. So everything that I said about Jacques, I gave it to him beforehand, and I said, are you okay with me saying this publicly? And so it passed all the tests. And I also talk about going to his apartment and seeing his library, which is an amazing library. And he has stained glass from Chartres Cathedral. And Chartres Cathedral is a special place for Rosicrucians, like a special place of presence of the sacred.
Chart. You're welcome.
And he actually did those himself. So
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go full Beavis and Butthead there, but it's Chart. Okay. I'll be mature from here on out. Ting!
he learned how to do stained glass from people at Chartres, by the way. And yeah, just amazing. And he had a lot of books on angels and fallen angels in that library, like almost like it was almost like going into the Vatican archive, going into this place, because these looked like first editions or close. So, you know, really, really old books about this topic.
Fallen angel.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked when I went. We were going to have lunch and talk about the crash site and maybe talk about, you know, what I learned from Tyler and that kind of thing. And we went to lunch, and then he said, "Do you want to see the library?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." So I saw the handwritten documents from Project Blue Book, and that was just going into the library. That wasn't actually in the library. Then when we got in there, I noticed big bookcases of these books, and
we're almost at the end of this, but what is the did I miss it? Maybe I'll have to go back. What is the context of her going to Jacques Vallee's house to talk about Tyler and what he showed her? Like, this is all odd to me. I guess maybe because this is a clipped out thing from a Joe Rogan show, I'm not getting the full sense of the timeline here. But what is the timeline between, like, I had no interest in UFOs, but I knew about Jacques Vallee, so now I'm in his house talking to him about, oh, by the way, right, I was shown UFO debris from this guy, Tyler, and I'm telling Jacques about that. Who has room in all of that to not believe in UFOs, really, when you think about it? Like, what is the timeline here? I'm not sure.
of course I was drawn to them. And he said he picked out one and he opened it and it was about angels. And he said, this is a book about angels. And I could see that. And I was looking at it. I was like, wow. And then I looked at the other bookshelf, and that bookshelf was just as impressive. And then it was about fallen angels. He said, oh, this one's about fallen angels. And then he made a joke. And he said, you can't have one without the other. And I thought that was really interesting.
That does seem to align with what we're talking about, with like the struggle of good and evil.
It does.
Oh, Meathead comes alive. Hey, Joe, could you be not high for 5 fucking seconds in your life? Do you think that's possible? Jesus Christ.
That's what he said too. And I was actually shocked at that point. I was like, wow. So just, you know, I'm a professor of religion, you know, so I'm like, yeah. I'm right about, you know, my intuition was somehow confirmed.
And by the way, I think people I think this should be. I'm not sure if this is totally true, but I believe he was the inspiration for the French character in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll just have to make do because I'm not going to have my timeline questions answered. But like, why is she going to Jacques Vallee I guess she was what, showing him a chapter in a book she was writing about him or something. I don't know what, and telling him about Tyler and company. I don't know. I don't know, man. So, okay, my overarching point in getting through this was to see if she could offer anything of value to the field. And I know a lot of people really like her and think she's great and really smart and all of that. Although I wonder if that's simply because they're impressed by her credentials, because, you know, that is the crumb to a starving person in ufology, right? It tastes like a cookie. Oh my God, she's a professor and she's taking the subject seriously. We must put her on a pedestal at all costs. I'm not seeing it here. I haven't wanted to read her books because I haven't been impressed so far by anything that would make me want to read them. And the first one, of course, has to do with her, how she's getting into this field in the first place, which I just wholeheartedly think is nonsense. Not that I think she's lying, but I just think she's being duped. And yeah, I see nothing here of value. But I mean, the point is arguable. I know people say that, like, well, but anyone who puts more eyeballs on the field is good. But the quality of the eyeballs matter. The quality of her eyeballs matter, and the people she's bringing in. And also, you don't want to bring people in to examine something under false pretenses, right? So, but I don't know. And ultimately, do I care anymore at this stage of my life with this phenomenon in it? Do I care about people researching it all? I do not. It's all folie à deux at this point. So that's, you know, call me jaded. All right. And I will expand on what I do think is going on here, what I know for a fact from my own experiences, and what I suspect. And I will definitely make those, you know, a definite dividing line between those. I won't leave you hanging of, well, I said this, but I didn't really mean it. Like, no, I'll let you know, like, what's a fact and what isn't, at least in my own head, in the Culture of Contact seminar series I'm going to be doing. So if you want to be a part of that, I'm sure I'll let you know more through here later, but you can always find me online wherever the hell I am. Go to the ko-fi.com thing, or go to jvay.com, or wherever you find me. Write to me. I don't know what. Do something. But anyway, that'll be coming soon, so it won't just be me like poo-pooing things. It'll be like, okay, and now here's what I think is really going on, and this is why, even if I am not correct about the things I suspect, they're still smarter and deeper than this crap we've been watching. That's good, right? It'll at least give us a place to look, a place to go next. So that's what I'm going to be doing with Culture of Contact, but He's So Vaeni will forge on because I'm having too much fun with this show. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks for paying attention.
He's so vain.